everyone. We're going to get started very shortly. We're just letting folks in to the waiting room, or from the waiting room rather. This meeting is being recorded, so if you don't want your face or your name on the Zoom recording, then feel free to change it or turn off your camera. Now, before we begin, I'd like to acknowledge that NASA and the U of A, which we're hosting this from, is located on Treaty 6 territory in Edmonton, the traditional territories of many Indigenous nations, such as the Cree, Dene, Nakota Sioux, Anishinaabe, and Blackfoot. And currently, the University of Alberta and NASA's office are located on unsurrendered Papas-Chase Cree territory. And that group is currently demanding official recognition by the federal government. So I would encourage you to look into that further. In addition, we also recognize that there are people across Alberta joining us tonight for this discussion. And I would encourage you all to comment in the chat where you're joining us from and what land you're on. Now we're going to hear tonight from two folks who have organized the first ever strike by faculty in Alberta and the first strike in post-secondary education. We'll hear from Glynis Price, the CUEFA President, on how negotiations broke down and how their members organized a 90% strike vote and won all the things that they won. Unfortunately, Ashley Callahan-Campbell, a QE student who organized the group Students Supporting CUEFA, had a last minute thing and sends her regrets. So Glynis and John here will be talking about the student support. And finally, John Washington, who took the role of strike captain and helped lead the logistics and morale for the time that they were out. So all of these folks that you'll hear from today supported CUEFA in winning a contract, and it's going to be an excellent discussion. Our discussion will also be moderated by Jillian Pratt, who is the NASA President, who I'll be turning it over to in a few minutes. My name is Cole Rockarts, and I'm NASA's staff organizer. If you have any technical issues during the session, you can feel free to message me and we'll get you sorted out. And now, right before we get started, we're just going to have a little bit of a poll so we can see who's in the room. We know there's lots of folks from all across Alberta at different institutions, different post-secondaries. And addition, if there are folks from Lethbridge joining us today, we just want to congratulate you on your hugely successful strike vote, 92%, and say on behalf of NASA and our members that we wish you all the best in fighting for a fair contract and hope that the employer will come back and you'll get a settlement soon. So I'm going to launch the poll now, and you'll have about a minute to respond, and we'll get back. If you're on mobile, this may not work, but, oh, they're coming in now. All right. Perfect. We're seeing a lot of support staff and a lot of other labor or union affiliates and some faculty, some students, and some community support, and that's excellent. And I'll end that poll in just 10 seconds, and then we'll turn it over to Jillian and get this discussion started. Awesome.
And I'm just going to hazard a guess that some of our potential either community supporters or other affiliates could potentially be sessionals as well, depending how your particular organization identifies them too. So thank you everyone for coming out, and don't forget to put in the chat kind of which institution and kind of land you're coming from if you know. My name is Jillian Pratt. I'm currently the president of the Non-Academic Staff Association, and I was a pretty much a daily supporter of the CUEFA line out there and got to know John fairly well, met Glynis a couple times. And I think we all have some really great tips on how to go about picketing in feels like -40 weather. Before folks got in, I was just saying that I hardly recognized the two of them without all of their snow gear on. And we all look about like 40 pounds lighter too. So the way we're going to structure this is we have a couple kind of preformed questions to set the stage and the context and really start to delve into the issue. After that, we're going to open the floor for questions. And while we're talking, of course, Zoom etiquette after almost 2 years, you know the drill. Keep your mics off when you're not speaking. And then, of course, be sure to unmute yourself when you have a question. And when you have a question, just use the raise hand feature, which you can access by clicking on reactions, and it should be right there. And you can always lower your hand when you're done. But raising your hand is going to put you in the queue for some questions. So I guess without any further ado, we will kick it off, and I will launch it over to our panelists for our first kind of question intro, if you will, which if you can just take a couple minutes to tell us a little bit about yourself, your organization for those who don't know, and talk a little bit about the issues and conditions that led to CUEFA voting to take strike action. Glynis, I'm going to start with you.
Thank you, Jillian. Hi, my name is Glynis Price. I'm the president of CUEFA. I also morphed into the chief negotiator as of the new year, but I was on the bargaining team the whole run. So bargaining didn't really start off auspiciously. We were told that, sorry, you'll hear my daughter in the background. We started with the university telling us that we'd missed the deadline to start bargaining. As per our collective agreement, we told them that the language was not what they thought it was. You're supposed to give notice a certain amount of time before. And we said, well, you know, we're happy to delay bargaining for a year because no one really wants to be bargaining right now. But, you know, there's a couple of things that need to be taken care of if we're doing that. So, you know, back to work protocols given COVID, and some questions about the potential for a cost of living increase just for the 1 year, because there hadn't been one for, what was it, John, 4 years previous, or I think it was only for the first year or second year of the deal. And so they never responded to that. And so we sent them our bargaining team, and bargaining started right away. So everything started normally after that. Proposals given. Theirs was, we're going to change some language here and there, nothing specific. And they wanted to bargain in order, so numerical order. We wanted to bargain priorities, get the big stuff out of the way, and then the little stuff kind of falls in place, which worked until we hit workload. Workload for our faculty was workload for faculty and our ASOs. So we're made up of all of the full-time faculty and the academic service officers, which are the librarians, the placement coordinators, and the lab instructors at the university. And workload was one of the biggest concerns. Our faculty teach 4 courses a term, so they teach 4 and 4 over the year, plus they have expected research that they need to have for advancement rank and for their annual evaluations. So needless to say, with that and all the pivoting, to use the word that has been required over the last 2 years, the workload was becoming incredibly untenable, as we see at many universities in many professions. And there was a lot of stress and a lot of burnout that we were starting to see. And so that was one of the biggest things that the membership set forward as we need to deal with this. If the university wants to become this preeminent research university in Alberta and Canada, then they're going to have to start acting like a research university and not expecting full-time college instructors and full-time sort of college teaching loads plus a full-time research load. And so we hit that in August, reached impasse pretty quickly on that one when they refused to move. They in fact suggested that we move to a 4 and 3 teaching load, but then reset research expectations, meaning that the workloads could actually get worse than what they were. And our members said, well, you know, if that's going to be the case, we'll just stick with what we have. At least we know how much research is going to be expected for annual evaluations. So we went back and forth where they just kept giving us the same offer again and again and again. We got it about 3 times from them. We went to the membership. They said that that was completely unacceptable. And so we filed for mediation, or we applied for mediation. Now, CUEFA is a little lucky in that because we are an independent institution, which is a very nebulous term that is not well covered under the PSLA. It's just kind of, there's all these rules in place for the public institutions, and then there's kind of, yeah, there's these other groups, but very little actually applies to them. They kind of just do their own thing. And so we don't have to, or didn't have to have an ESA in place to be able to go for formal mediation. It's one of the little perks of being an independent institution. And so we were able to enter formal mediation immediately. We tried to bargain over the month and a half it took to get into the mediator, and Concordia wanted nothing to do with it. We went with the mediator. He managed to get a few more articles out of them, nothing on workload, which is what we went to mediation for, but he was able to get some language out of them, and then wrote us out because he's like, well, you're at impasse, nothing is happening on this, and this is what you came to mediation for. And so that began the 14-day countdown or cooling off period as prescribed by the Labor Board. In that time, we took a good look at their discipline article that they'd proposed to us, and they'd added pretty much a single word saying that we could be disciplined, including up to termination, including for just cause. And grammatic errors aside, it meant that we could be fired for any reason whatsoever. It's very atypical to be able to be fired for anything but just reason. And so, or for just cause. And so this was incredibly infuriating, as you guys can imagine, for all of our members. They wanted us to ascribe to the university IP policy, which pulled all of the IP that people were developing for courses out of their own ownership and put it primarily into the ownership of the university, meaning that they could take someone's online lectures, they could take someone's labs and turn it into courses that would be to the benefit of the university, but the actual creator of that course would not get anything for it, any credit for it, or any benefit of it. And so that was another thing. They refused to discuss salary, and they refused to budge on workload. So we were at impasse on a number of articles at this point. They refused to discuss anything to do with our ASOs. They wanted to focus on faculty. And so they wouldn't even work on those articles while we were at impasse on everything else. So with the lack of movement and the lack of willingness to even discuss movement, we pulled the entire association together, had a meeting during that 14-day cool-off period, and said, these are our options. We can keep, plugging away at this with nothing's happening, or we do have the opportunity at the end of these 14 days to take a strike vote with the hope that this will put some additional pressure on the administration to start working and start bargaining in good faith with us. And so the membership agreed and voted on going for a strike vote. Within the 2 weeks of when we filed all the paperwork and when we took our strike vote, we had some members who were intimidated by one of our deans. So one of our deans went after a few of our members, suggesting that given that they were probationary hires, they should be very concerned about what a strike vote, voting yes on a strike vote could do to their careers, and suggested, in fact, that they vote no, which for those of you who don't know, that's actually illegal, and it's interfering in union activities. And so this happened in the lead up to the strike vote. We were also slapped with a labor board complaint, an unfair bargaining, saying that we had orchestrated bargaining to lead to a strike, that we were never planning to bargain in good faith, that from the very beginning, all we were going to do was strike. And that we orchestrated everything specifically and timelines specifically for that. It also mentioned that we weren't willing to negotiate with the university while waiting for mediation or in the 14-day cooling off period. And all of this, luckily for us, we were able to actually completely invalidate their complaint by having emails backing it up saying, hey, let's bargain. Hey, here's some articles. Hey, let's do this. That is still in front of the labor board, as is our complaint about the dean and the university intimidating our members. And so we have several dates with the labor board in the next few months, which is going to be great fun. But yeah, and then we had our strike vote. And as all of you know, our strike vote was highly successful. 95% of our members voted. And of those, 90% voted in favor of taking job action if necessary. The next day, we had a bargaining session, and lo and behold, workload became an article that was very easily negotiated. They immediately came back with our workload offer of dropping to 3 courses a term, which is still high in the industry, but was a significant change for a good chunk of our faculty. We also negotiated what the associated research expectations would be for that as well. So workload was solved within a week. And then they gave us a salary offer with the premise that this is a lot better than you would have been offered last spring in conversation with what the secret or really not so secret government mandates in terms of what should be offered to faculty associations or in union bargaining. We were offered the newest mandate, or actually just a little more than the newest mandate, because Concordia is not being held to the mandates, but they were highly suggested. So we were offered 3.25, 3.75 was the percentage that we, around that is what we were offered. And actually only faculty was offered that. The ASOs were offered a lower number. So that went back and forth. We finally gave them a salary offer that included the same offer for both our faculty and our ASOs. And the response was, this isn't within the realm of reality, and we're not going to counter this. And that was the end of bargaining that day. So I pulled the executive together, and we decided to give strike notice, gave that on December 22nd. Again, instead of 72 hours, we actually gave just under 2 weeks with the idea of, well, hey, maybe we can sort this out. It was over Christmas, so we were very busy bargaining over Christmas. They called in the mediator again, and then told the mediator that they were not going to actually bargain. So we said, this is kind of the bottom line. This is what we can do, because this is the mandate we've been given. And they said, no, thank you. And that was the end. The mediator was a little confused as to why he was brought in. The rest of bargaining was canceled for the week. And as of 9 a.m. on the 4th of January, we went on strike with our lovely opening sort of rally at the McGrath Mansion. Spent the first week in extremely cold temperatures, as many people joined us on the line, which was lovely. And it took about 5 days until they're like, yeah, so maybe we should start talking. 4 or 5 days. We'd sent an email on the second day of the strike, and then finally they did get back to us with some dates to start bargaining again. Everything moved incredibly quickly after that. And we started knocking off articles incredibly quickly. Before we even started bargaining again, they gave us the corrected discipline. So they just took that word out. It was incredibly easy for them to do, but they stopped using it as a bargaining chip. They just corrected discipline. And then we went through. We thought we would go to binding arbitration. In fact, we'd agreed to binding arbitration for salary. We were concerned that because the labor board does enjoy labor peace more than labor strife, that they would prefer a much longer agreement than we wanted. So we thought that they would, yeah, of course, that they would put a longer agreement on it. And then very last minute, they said, here's our final offer, final salary offer today only. We said, well, if you're giving us an offer, we're going to counter it. And they accepted our counter. And then we had to get the back to work protocol and all of that in place. So it was a very busy sort of last 5-6 days. So I didn't get to be on the line much that second week when the weather was significantly better. But I was fine with that because I had two incredible people who were willing to take over as strike captains. So John Washington here is one of them. We had another one, Brian Rooney. We had so many people who picked up jobs and were working on the line for us. And then, you know, we can talk a bit later once John tells you all about the amazing work he did, about our amazing students. We got contacted by some students and who had started the Student Supporting CUEFA group on Twitter and social media. And they were concerned because the university and the CSA was shutting them down. Every time they tried to talk about the strike or talk to students or talk about the emails they were getting from the president, the Students Association at Concordia would shut them down and delete any of their posts. And so they needed to find other ways to try and communicate with the students who were really getting a one-sided story. And so Ashley and the group she organized was phenomenal in this and walked the line with us, became an honorary member of the faculty as well.
Thanks so much for that overview, Glynis. I really appreciate it. Before I move to John, I just want to touch on one thing really quick. You mentioned that CUE, the employer, had a labor board complaint against you and bargaining in bad faith. For everyone on this chat, I'm just wondering, given this year's bargaining environment, just raise your hand either on your screen or your virtual hand if your organization happens to have any bargaining in bad faith complaints out or against you, because I know from our perspective, this seems to be one of the more challenging rounds of bargaining that we've ever been through. So we got a couple hands going up. I know U of A support staff, Ashwa, U of L. Yeah, I see Athabasca on there. Definitely a couple different groups having that same experience for sure. So I'm just going to toss it over now to John. So John, can you tell us a little bit more about your role kind of through this process and what you know of the student involvement side?
Okay, so I guess I'll lead off and say that I've been at Concordia for almost 25 years. And so one of the interesting things, and this will lead into my role, what's happened at Concordia is we have a lot of older faculty like myself. Kids have gone, and then we have a lot of younger members, certainly with elementary school age children. So we're a bit bimodal. I think Glynis would agree very much that it's a mix of older and younger, not very many people in the middle. So the student involvement really came from a colleague of mine named Tolly Bradford. He's a historian, and he had, I would say, a truly exceptional student named Ashley. And Tolly was very much a mentor for her. She's a mature student, classic case of didn't do well when she first started school, came back, found some people that believed in her, and very much has brought her along. And she's an exceptional student, but also a true advocate. And so she saw what was happening, not only with the faculty, but with Concordia in general. Because I've mentioned I've been there forever, I really did notice in the past 5 years personally, there had been a real change to a top-down approach and a lack of respect and a change in what I would call the ethos of the institution. And students started to pick up on this. The best way I can put it is 2 years ago, we ran a surplus of $8 million on $40 million revenue. This past year, we ran a surplus of $12 million on $40 million in revenue. So we're running 17 to 25% surplus profit that we're putting into buildings. But the direct spending on students, because our enrollment has doubled in the past 5 years, the direct spending on students dropped from 70% to 50%. So while our revenue was going up, the amount that we were spending on students was starting to drop. And I'll be honest, students could start to see the effects. We simply had less time for them, right? We had more administrative duties in order to be able to manage all the courses and all the students that we were having. And Ashley actually started a Twitter account to voice some of the concerns that she was having and other students were having. And what was important, I should point out that I'm also on the Board of Governors, okay, as the GFC rep. There is the student union president, the CSA president is on the Board of Governors, and there is an official Facebook account for the student union, but it wasn't really voicing the concern that some of the students were having. And so what happened with Ashley is that I think she was crucial in moving things forward in terms of communication from the faculty to the students. Because Glynis and I were at a strike protocol meeting with our vice president academic, and it was a very interesting meeting. It was very clear that our email access would be cut off and that we were not to communicate with students. And so we really didn't have a good mechanism right at the start for communicating with students. And Ashley, with her Twitter account and insight into how students communicate was very important, because they don't, being younger, they use Twitter, they use Instagram, they use Discord, and all of those platforms are very much unfamiliar to myself, but also obviously very unfamiliar to administration, because they were trying to use traditional ideas like their website, and they simply weren't reaching students. So I get my advice for students, if faculty members, we all have a few senior students that we mentor, and if they would be willing to listen and help. I noticed that at Lethbridge there was a student rally for the faculty, and students getting involved on the social media end is very important. I think you would agree, Glynis? Yeah. So that was very much, and then when we hived off onto, Glynis very much said that it was myself and Brian Rooney. I'll be honest, we quickly broke off into two main groups. There would be the, I guess, hands-on picketing group, of which I was very much involved with. And then we broke off into, I didn't break off because I wouldn't know anything to do, but we had a communication group, and that involved the student, and that involved a number of our faculty, mainly in arts and history, very good at writing and communicating. I myself am a chemist, so probably not that good. And we have very much divided off into a focus on picketing, so the public presence, and then a focus on social media. And those were two groups. We were working parallel, but we didn't get in each other's business. And I don't know if you want to jump in on that, Glynis.
No, I was the only one getting in everyone's business. I should have just been staying out of the way. No, but everyone jumped in, which was amazing. And we found jobs for everyone, whether they could be on the line, or we had some that were stuck at home due to COVID protocols, and we found jobs for everyone.
Yeah.
Well, and speaking of getting into kind of people's business and finding jobs for folks, I'm not sure which one of you wants to take this. I'm wondering if you can tell us a little bit more about how you mobilize your members to support your bargaining team and to support the picket.
Okay, yeah, I can address that. The idea with the strike committee was to stay out of Glynis's hair and let her bargain, to try and remove, I shouldn't say remove her from the decision-making process, but not involve her in the minutia of the strike. So again, we did have two streams. What I would suggest, when I got this email about what would we do differently, we did have a member, her name was Jenna, who was kind enough to take over the logistics. I would say that's a very important person, and you should have two people doing that working together, and split your forces into focusing on the picketing organization end and the other one on the communications end. And so what we had happen is the tasks at the communication end, they met every evening, just as the picketing team met every evening. We had about half a dozen members on each that were very much involved. And there was some kind of cross-pollination of ideas. And I'll talk about the picketing first, and then I'll talk about the communication team. So on the picketing side, we did have some people staying at home because of COVID, and not everybody can picket due to health concerns and all that stuff. And work is work. We made that decision that not picketing isn't the only type of work. And Jenna was very good at organizing people, sign-up sheets to come out to picket. We had two picketing sessions a day, sending out thank you cards, working with our flying pickets to help mobilize them and give them information to come out. So on that end, it started off with just her, and it soon became a vast amount of work, and we're only 82 members. So I would say on the organization side, you would need 1 or 2 lead people and probably 4 to 6 people just to answer emails and send out communication. That and it has to do with thank you cards, and has to do with, CUEFA will send in flying pickets. We had lots of, literally so many friends showed up, it's unbelievable, right? All sorts of different unions, representative from government came to help. And so just organizing that is incredibly important. Just simply the sign-up sheets. Now, along with that committee, we had a subgroup of another 3 people that organized strike pay, because you have to organize a bank account, put money in the account. CUEFA was good enough to organize, to provide funding. Many organizations were kind enough to donate us money. So the idea of keeping track of strike pay, in our case, it was $88 a day, which was tax-free. And we had 3 people working there. You have to set up a separate bank account, of course, if you don't already have one for your association. It turns out the bank was slow on setting up e-transfer, so at the end we actually wrote checks. But if you have more lead time, you can set it up with electronic transfer. We decided to pay every 2 weeks. Okay. Now, what we found in those 2 areas is members were good at slotting themselves into what they're good at. The organization at the top was all librarians. Okay. We have research librarians. They're very good at the technical side. They're used to handling with databases, and they're incredibly organized. So they bring that skill set. So that's the type of person that you would need. On the finance side, not surprisingly, we had a mathematician and 2 people from management, one of which was an accountant. So if you have members with an expertise in that area, that certainly helps. On the organization of the picket side, well, I hate to say it, you need, I think you do need a number of people that don't have a lot of outside things happening, I'll be honest, in their personal life. My kids are gone, so I got nothing but time when I was on strike. So I didn't have a problem going to the strike line and setting up the pickets. So I think you might have a few members who have more time, right? I wouldn't want to put it on somebody with young children, right? I think that would be onerous, but different people have different skill sets, and you may have people willing, just to be setting up. Now, every day on the line, I would set up, but we would have 2 strike captains, and those would rotate. So it was different people every day. And so I wasn't the boss every day, I was there every day. But it is important to share the load. What is important is, it also is important to designate spokespeople because the media will show up. And we made sure that every session we had 4 designated people that could speak to the media. Glynis was one of them. And every day on the picket line, we made sure that we had a designated spokesperson just in case the media did show up, because a few times they showed up just out of the blue and wanted to talk. And members were informed that you know, just only one person can speak for the association, designated. Okay. Oh, that's a lot. Okay. On the communication side, there were people that were organizing the social media, and there were people that were organizing the press releases and the public outreach. And I'll be honest, one of the most impressive things that I saw, and this was very much with the assistance of CUEFA, they provided behind the scenes help. The second weekend, so we went on strike on a Tuesday. The following Wednesday, we were able to host a town hall for students and parents. And that idea came about on a Saturday. We were having our usual our daily debrief at the end of picketing, and the idea came up from communications about holding a town hall, and they worked with CUEFA and they were able to pull it off by Wednesday. And again, from the email comments, that possible questions, I think it was a great idea to hold a town hall. I think in hindsight, if we could have done it earlier in the first week, I think it would have been better, but we didn't have that idea at the time. So if you, we did work closely with CUEFA, but I think getting that information out to the parents especially and the students, because we did find the communication was trying to be very one-sided from administration because they controlled the email accounts. But we had a Zoom meeting town hall. I think we had 350 attendees, right? And it's just a good way to convey information. Have a staff. We do have a staff association, but it is not a unionized staff association. And the director of the staff association is a manager at Concordia. How's that? Hopefully,
perhaps, John, you might have some contacts of support staff to talk to should other unions wish to talk to them about possible organizing efforts.
We have in fact been approached while we were on the line. There was a drive, probably about, what was it, John, about 5 years ago? No, I think it was about the same time that we did our last collective agreement, where we did have some members of the staff association who were trying to unionize with AUB, and we call those the years of the disappearances. People would suddenly no longer be working at CUE. And there was always a reason. It was never, of course, obviously, well, because they were trying to unionize. But our administration has long been against unionization. You probably also heard during all of this that our sessionals are also not unionized. And I believe Vern is here. There's maybe a number of our sessionals. And it's been sort of a rough ride. It's another one of those sort of little perks for the university of being an independent institution, is we are not required for anyone else to be unionized or to be covered by a union. So we have been approached, and we are actually working and supporting our sessionals as well, or whoever they choose to unionize with. They're still looking at different options. And then I have started making discrete inquiries to certain members of our staff, our non-academic staff, in terms of trying to gauge a level of interest. And so we're trying to get the whole university protected. And I think I hope, crossing my fingers, knocking on all the wood, that we'll be able to do that for our sessionals. I know that they're meeting regularly and they're very motivated. Staff, there's two camps. There's the staff who've been there for many years who are very opposed to it. And then there's a newer staff that are very interested. And so again, we're talking, we're seeing what we can do, create some some openings for AUP or QP or any of the other associations who want to sort of come in and help out. But
Yeah.
it's been an interesting trip. There you go, Burns. There you go. A few sessionals on Twitter.
Before we jump to the Q&A section, I just want to ask kind of one more question kind of on this line. I'm wondering if you can speak to if there was anything unexpected that happened at the line. Like, was there any unexpected support or adversaries on the other hand? Any surprises? Good, bad, or neutral?
I guess I guess I'll address that because I was there quite a bit. The most incredible thing was just the amount of random support that we got. Just other unions showing up to support us. We had machinists show up the second day when it was -40, and I'm like, the posties came. We had support from government. I see that David Egan is here. Janice Irwin came. Blake Desjardins came, who was the end. No, so we did not run a picket line to block traffic. We decided to run a very, I guess, polite picket line because we wanted to come across as the voice of reason to our students. So we did not stop traffic. We obeyed all, crosswalk signs. We didn't. The posties would come by and honk. There's a daycare on campus. Glynis had contacted the daycare beforehand that we would not be blocking traffic. Staff did come, and they did come and talk to us when campus was closed, but some staff had to come on. We welcomed staff and invited them to have coffee and donuts with us. So we decided to maintain a very, very friendly picket line. And what we saw was there's a few things. People would just in the neighborhood would drop off coffee and donuts. It was too cold to eat the donuts because they actually froze in like 10 minutes. But for those of you who don't know where Concordia is, we're on 112th Avenue, and right across from 112th Avenue is Bellevue Community Hall. Okay, so we, because of the land around Concordia, there was no place that we could get a burn barrel because it's all private land or a porta potty set up. So when it was -40, we had people, you could come into your car and you could warm up in the car and we would drive you to the bathroom. About 2 days in, 2.5 days in, a lady, Shelley from the community, came and contacted us and said that she worked with the community hall and she gave us access to the community hall to use the bathrooms and to warm up. And for the first couple of days, it was free of charge. And then it was this incredibly discounted rate of $80 a day. The normal rate to rent a community hall is about $400 a day. So that started to make a big difference. So I guess it's just the outpouring of support from the community. I was on the line one day, one of our younger faculty members in education. She has a very active Twitter account. She was talking about what books she should read on the strike because she has her evenings free. A random young man just came up and brought 2 books that she had on her list, found her on the line and gave it to her. So there's all sorts of little stories like that. And I think what surprised me is you think Alberta is being anti-union, and I think that's the government stance, but I think most people are supportive of people that have to work and are in a union. And I think for me, that was the take-home message. So just the acts of kindness that people did on the line randomly, and then the support that we got from all our other friends in Alberta, which we needed because there's only 82 members. And in the last week, we ran 2 picketing sessions of 2 hours each. And with 82 members, we were averaging 140 people on the line every session. So that was a big deal for us. And we're still very thankful about that.
I know we also, I'll just jump in here for a sec. We also had some unexpected help from both Canada Post. Their members refused to cross the picket line and deliver mail to the university. So the university had to go and pick up the mail every day, or someone from the university did. As well, we're building a brand new big $40 million building on campus. And the company that was contracted to pour the concrete for the foundation of the building, their members refused to cross the picket line because that contractor happens to be unionized. And so construction completely stopped on that building over the course of the strike because there was no way they were crossing the line. And so we had some unexpected help pressuring the university to that, you're going to be losing money by doing this as well. And then by the second week, we had a huge amount of student support as well. So we had students on the line with us. We had very active lines that second week. I mean, the temperature helped. It was no longer minus 40. So that was incredibly helpful. But yeah, no, the outpouring of support was unexpected and incredibly welcome.
Okay,
Yeah,
so I'll let you get the last word in
Oh.
on that, John.
Sorry, yeah, I must admit that when I first think about picketing, I thought it was silly, right? People walking around with signs, especially outside Concordia, because it's relatively small profile. What it really was is people got a chance to talk. So people would walk up and down and everybody walked in pairs and they just talked, and you had a new partner every day, it seemed. And I think the morale boost that you get from being on the picket line really helps, because you get a lot of negative messages from admin, but when you're on the picket line, you get a lot of positive messages, both from friends that show up and also from your own colleagues. So in that line, I think picketing is important.
Okay, so with that, I'm gonna open the floor up to questions then for our guests, Glynis and John. So feel free to raise your hand and I'm happy to call on you if you have any questions. All right, Zach, take it away.
Sorry. Hey there. Sorry, I figured I'd be first at this. So right now, our local is going through bargaining with the city of Edmonton, and we've been going for about 3-4 months now, and we're getting to that point where we're starting to get a little irritated. From what I gather, you were sort of at the same point where you're starting to get irritated, and you feel like things are going and they aren't progressing in a direction you like. When you're communicating with your members, were you like? When you were communicating with your members, were you conscious of like the message we're sending? Should we sort of ratchet things up slowly, or should we keep things at a very neutral tone? Do we want to let them know that these might be possibilities, and should we prime our members for that? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I can certainly speak to that. We started with a very open, transparent communication right from the start. So before we were even bargaining, we went through and said, okay, what's important? So typically, it was lucky for us because we have a very small group, so it's easy to get everyone or almost everyone together. And so that was really nice. But, and John can back me up on this, I hope. When we hit snags, we went to the membership immediately and said, look, these are the options. This is what this option means. This is what the second option means. So we went through, what does going to mediation mean? Exactly what does a strike vote mean, or taking this vote mean? And what is voting yes? What is voting no? So we were very open and very transparent. I don't think we went sort of the ratcheting, but we just said, this is what we have to do. We're not getting anywhere at this point. This is the next move we can make. And we didn't update everyone on sort of, oh, they added the word and to this, or they put an extra comma here. But the big things, every time we bargained, I tried to send out an email with a massive update of this is what we got. So we were typically very open about it, and very explicit if we were making big decisions.
Okay, next on our list, we have, I believe it's Hofstede Steve.
Hi there, I'm Steve with Socialist Fight Back. I'm a NATE alumni. I just want to congratulate CUEFA for winning this historic strike. So one of the critical parts of winning a strike is getting solidarity from other unions. Solidarity actions on a picket line, you all have been telling stories about that, is good for your morale, but it's also good to kind of demonstrate to administration, the bosses, like what they're facing. And as we know, other unions in the education sector are prepping for strike action. Today, as noted earlier, the University of Lethbridge had an overwhelming vote in favor of a strike. Does CUEFA have a solidarity committee, and what type of organizing is CUEFA preparing to do or planning to do to offer solidarity to other unions?
We don't have a solidarity committee. We are meeting regularly, oddly enough. And our executive has also met in terms of what are the next steps. So where do we have stuff that we're dealing with in-house? And then we are also obviously dealing with how are we going to show support across the province, across the country? What are the next steps that we can take? So the one really cool thing that's come out of this is there are now working groups of the presidents of these faculty associations across Edmonton, across Alberta, across the country, where we're meeting more regularly and saying, okay, what can we do to support? I mean, in this case, the next case, it's Lethbridge. We know MRU, not that far behind. We know that U of A. We know there's a lot of negotiations going on. We know AASUA has gone into formal mediation. We know NASA's still in bargaining, right? So we know that there's a lot of bargaining going on. And so the next steps are, what can we do? And so I'm talking with a lot of the presidents, I'm talking with organizers, what can we do to help you? So we're already planning support pickets to various places across the province, the country. We're discussing rallies in Edmonton to support people in Lethbridge. So we're doing that kind of work, which is great because it means that there's a huge sense of engagement. We're keeping people engaged, and hopefully, and from my point of view and from at least the executive's point of view, we can give back some of the support that was given to us when we were on strike.
Okay, next up we have Carol.
Hi, everyone. I'm a junior high teacher, and there's another K-12 teacher in here with me. I bargained for a long time, and guess what? We'll be up for, well, we're in negotiations with the province right now. I have 40,000 people, and 85 just astounds me that you're able to get this much done. And I need to know what broke the straw that broke the camel's back, because when we've had conversations about whether K-12 teachers are ready to go on strike, it's not overwhelming. There are a lot of people scared. There's a lot of, I think, that feeling about they're not sure what the public, whether they'll be behind them or not. And I love the fact with 85 people, you were able to do so well. So what made 92% or any of the other universities get 95, 98, 92? I don't know if all K-12s will do that. And so how did you do that? Because I think people are scared, or I can tell you that a lot of teachers are scared.
I guess I'll address that because, you know, I'm very much on the faculty side. When I talked to my colleagues after the strike, you know, ASOs, librarians, other faculty members, it was about respect. In the last 4 or 5 years, there had been a lot of, I'll be honest, top-down intimidation happening to members. We found that everybody had a story and we're very much isolated. Now, for the straw that broke the camel's back, the removal without cause. Because we could all see that we could see the writing on the wall that we would all be gone eventually. And so you might as well go on strike because you have nothing to lose, right? There's a point where if you're going to die, you might as well die on your feet. to be a little bit overly dramatic, but that's really what it was. Because you have, we're very much like teachers. It's a long-term career, and it's more than, you do it for more than a paycheck. And putting, once the disrespect comes in, it's disrespectful for what you do, and it becomes almost on a personal level for how much extra work you do. Concordia runs on extra effort, teachers run on extra effort. And once that stops being respected, it's no longer about money.
And Abby L.
Hi. So yeah, my name's Abby. I'm actually an education student at the U of A, therefore a member of ATA Student Local 1, and I'm also a member of Socialist Fight Back. So students across all the campuses, we're acutely aware that the services that we're receiving, they're being cut while we're facing higher and higher tuition every year. Therefore, students themselves have an interest in seeing improvement in staff working conditions, as it will directly lead to better learning conditions, especially with the imminent move to in-person for the U of A. As the saying goes, working conditions are learning conditions, and I think that goes for support staff, academic staff, anyone working there. One of the things that we saw with the strike at Concordia was the concern that the admin would try to turn the students against the staff. And we've seen both with Concordia and with other strikes, such as at the University of Manitoba, that student support of the strike is key in raising morale and in winning the strike. So far, I think NASA's done a really good job doing some outreach. I actually met them at their tenting in the fall semester. So I guess my question is, given that the CUE immediately tried to break solidarity between staff and students, what recommendations would you make for NASA to escalate their outreach to students and ensure that students are on their side even before a strike starts?
I mean, one of the biggest things for us is we didn't want students to have to pick a side. One of the big things is we wanted to make sure that students were at least getting a balanced sort of answer to any of their questions. The students still have to come to the university. They still have to come to our classes. So we don't want to turn them completely against the university. We know, and one of the things that we told our students when we spoke to them was that university is a time and a place to learn critical thinking. And if you're not being able to get balanced information, you're going to create issues. Our students are not dumb. None of our students are dumb. And they know exactly what the university is putting out when they're sending out these mass emails. And so we had students who would come to us and ask questions saying, hey, so this is what we heard. And that was great because it meant that we could then say, okay, well, that's the university's view. And one of the big things, as I know John said earlier, is we wanted to be the adults and take the high road. And to do that, we can't and never should talk down to our students or say, well, actually, this is how it really is. So trying to present a balanced approach and finding those methods of communication. I mean, for us, it was Ashley and students supporting CUEFA. We started talking with her. We started talking with other students and sharing all of these stories across campus. But students really started to pick up on the sort of unbalanced communication, and it's just keeping lines open, making sure that there's always information available if there are questions. And I had a very angry email sent to me by students about how I was destroying their term, how we were destroying the university and we should just get back to work. And the only way I responded was here, I totally understand your concerns. We don't want to be on strike. If you have any questions, specific questions, please let me know. And just responded to it with respect. Again, it goes back to that. Everyone is entitled to their opinion. If you're willing to respect it and answer any questions, then you're doing well. And I think that stands for any organization, not just CUEFA.
I'll just jump in one quick thing. Certainly in the past 2 years, first of all, being online and then moving back to in person and now being online, most students saw that the faculty and staff were working for them. We didn't know I'll be honest, we didn't know exactly what we were doing all the time. We kind of were figuring it out, but I certainly at Concordia, and I would know that this would be true at any place in Alberta. The staff and faculty were trying to make it work as best they could. At least you weren't getting perfect, but you were getting an honest effort, and students recognize that. And admin in many places has been missing for 2 years, right? They haven't been on campus. They haven't seen what's going on. And one of my colleagues actually said something I thought was very interesting. He said that he never can remember the name of an administrator when he went to school, but he knows the name of the staff and the lab instructors and the professors that helped him out. Just as you can remember a teacher, but you might not remember the principal. And I think sometimes in this field we undervalue our ability to connect with students, and I think it's there. And as Glynis says, as long as we're open and honest, we'll be okay.
And since we are at 8 o'clock, John and Glynis, if you're good to stay on, we'll try and get through the last 4 questions, and we'll just try and be succinct with our questions if folks can, just because we want to respect everyone's time who was able to come out tonight. So Philip, over to you.
Thank you very much. Thanks for hosting this. It's very informative. I want to congratulate you on having a successful strike. It's quite an endeavor and really intimidating. I'm just jumping off Abby's question a bit. So this is for you, John. You mentioned Ashley taking a lead, and I was note-taking while you spoke, and I got the impression that the student union was not necessarily as supportive as they may have been otherwise, and that's what prompted Ashley taking such a role. What was the student union have any kind of official position? And just if you could discuss that and perhaps a little bit more on why Ashley jumped into her role the way she did.
I'm gonna answer that as in terms of yes and no official position, but acting on the behalf of administration. The students union has for instance, the student union had a Facebook page, and any comments that were supportive of faculty or not supportive of administration were removed and censored. And so in terms of the Concordia Students Association, they were, I think Glynis would agree, they're very much silent or certainly not putting forward any association business. I'm not sure where that came about. I do know the student union president is on the board of governors. But I think certainly at Concordia, there's not a lot of involvement with students at the Concordia Student Association level. The Graduate Student Association was pretty much straight out of the issue. I didn't hear very much about them. And so you're correct in terms of Ashley. She was trying to get information from the Students Association, wasn't getting any real feedback, and decided to go her own road. Do you have anything to add? Oh, sorry.
Nope. Is there a follow-up with that, Philip?
No, that's perfect. I was just curious exactly where they were and how that prompted her, and you've made it much clearer. So thank you so much.
Okay, then we'll pass it over to David Egan.
Well, thank you, and thanks so much for hosting this tonight. It really helps us a lot, I think. For me, it really meant a lot to be on the line, just personally, to see some sense of hope for people pushing back against this UCP government. I mean, I know that this was about a labor issue, but it's also about a provincial issue too. And so when you talked about so many people showing up on the line, myself and the Alberta New Democrat caucus as well, and so many different unions, it was all about just, giving us a sense of hope for the future. And so my question is, what can we do as the official opposition, we will be going back into the legislative session on February 22nd. You've set a great precedent for pushing back against this UCP agenda, but here we are now with the budget coming up on the 24th. There's so many affiliates, so many unions here with outstanding contracts. What can we do to make this a better situation in advanced education across the province?
First of all, of course, thank you. I mean, you're on the line, I think, every single day there. Joy's got the right idea. The government really shouldn't be a part of this. I mean, they need to keep their nose out of bargaining with all of the secret mandates that are out there. I mean, I think another one of the big issues, and it's been discussed, ad nauseum, is they can't be cutting all of this funding to these universities and then telling them, exactly how they can and cannot bargain. So there's a systemic sort of destruction of the post-secondary sector. I mean, the same could be said for many of our public sectors under this government right now. And then dictating exactly how those universities are then going to deal with said shortfall. I think the biggest thing for most of the bargaining right now that I've heard when I'm talking to other associations is that the government needs to get their fingers out of it. And that these secret mandates have to go. That's just the end of it. If you're gonna have these mandates, at least be public about it. Don't hide behind it. I mean, at least we know the government of Manitoba was very open about their mandate. And I think, yeah, it does go back to that. It comes down to respect. And that is something that I don't think many people in this room, if anyone in this room, has seen from the current government in respect to education. And regardless of what part of education you are involved in, there's a lack of respect. And that's unfortunately not playing out well for anyone involved. It's not playing out well for students, for staff, for faculty. It's just a blatant attempt to destroy the sector and to destroy education in general. I mean, we're seeing it in K-12 as well. So that's my very biased view on that one, though.
I'll jump in quickly too. My comment would be follow the money. At Concordia, and I think this would be true at many other universities, there's an administrative bloat in the middle. And so there's more money being spent in the middle and less funding that goes, I would call it, on the ground level. And at the end of the day, universities are meant to serve students. They're meant to educate, right, the younger generation, bring them up. And by taking money away at the ground level, I think we're doing a disservice. And I think as we look at administrative structure, we're being asked to take cuts, across Alberta at the ground level. What's happening at the administrative level? What's happening at the middle management level? What's happening at the upper administrative level? What does that look like? And I think that would be my 2 cents.
What I heard is public mandates, respect for the bargaining process. Are we asking too much of this government with some of these things? I mean that facetiously. James, over to you. And we can't hear you, James. James, let's give you a minute to get that figured out, and I'll go over to David Harrigan.
Hi, David Harrigan, Director of Labor Relations with United Nurses of Alberta. I had 2 questions. I hope they're not too technical. And one is what your thoughts were. Did the mediator provide anything to the process? And then the second question that I had, Glynis, you talked about you sort of somehow morphed into being the chief negotiator. Did you have a committee working with you as well, or were you on your own when you would meet with them?
Oh, I would never have allowed that. That would have been horrible, and I probably would have quit. No, I was part of the bargaining team all along, and so we had a team of 4 of us that then, due to one of our members going on sabbatical, our chief negotiator went on sabbatical, and then I took over the position only for the last couple of weeks. Now, they were the most exciting couple of weeks, but yeah, so we had a team, and we were actually a veteran team. All 4 of us had done this before. This time it just got a little dirtier than it had the time before. So yeah, no, I worked with amazing people, and we're all pretty close. We're all pretty tired, but we're all pretty close. So yeah, so no, there's no way that I would have done that alone. There's a lot of personal attacks that were happening at the bargaining table, and so that would have just been decimating. So don't let anyone do any of the organizing or any of this alone. In terms of your first question was about, sorry.
Mediator, and whether he actually added anything, or he or she added anything to the process.
We had, our mediator this time was great. He was very nice. He was very friendly. I don't know that he necessarily added huge amounts to the process, but he didn't hinder the process, which is, I know, what we've seen with mediators in other situations. And so that was really nice. There was I don't know why there was no hindering in place, but it was very much okay, well, we obviously can't work on this. Let's see if there's other stuff we can work on. So what can we get done if we can't get the big stuff done? Which is great, but not overly helpful if we still can't get the big issues out of the way. Yeah, I don't know that he necessarily added value to the process. We didn't get a heck of a lot done with him. We moved a little bit of language, but we didn't actually sign anything off based on mediation in and of itself. And we certainly didn't get anywhere on workload. But yeah, so it was a positive process, but it didn't lead to, other than him writing us out of mediation, which of course led to the strike vote. It didn't help the process, but again, didn't hinder. So it was a very neutral experience for us, which I know is not the case across the province right now. We are seeing some distinctly non-neutral mediation where there's suggestions of, you know what, no, I'm not going to write you out, or no, I really don't think you should be doing this. Just listen to the option. You might not get something better. And we were lucky that that's not what our mediator did for us. So.
And James, have you been able to get your sound working?
I think so.
You're good.
Awesome.
Last question, over to you.
Yeah, so hello, I'm James from Socialist Fight Back, and I'm a U of A alumni. So first of all, thank you, CUEFA, for hosting this, thanks for being here, and congratulations on your strike. It gives me a lot of hope in these trying times. So as you all know, the longer the picket, the shorter the strike. So it's always important to reach out to everybody that could support the strike. And John was saying that you guys actually received quite a bit of public support. So I'm glad to hear that. And I think it makes a lot of sense. Workers' living standards have stagnated, or more commonly with the inflation that we're seeing, their living standards are falling. All the while, the boss's profits have never been higher. I think with a strong leadership, workers are ready and willing to fight for higher living standards across the board. So my question is, based on CUEFA's experience, how should NASA increase their efforts to reach out to the public for support? Thank you.
Do you want me to start, Glynis?
Yep.
Yeah, that's a tricky question, partly because the playbook that's often followed is that people that work in education are elitist and a little bit lazy and really don't work very hard for their money. We wouldn't be considered to be hardworking Albertans when in fact we are. And I think the connection has to be made to the parents and the students themselves. All of us in this chat have been a student at one time, and we've all had teachers or professors that certainly helped us along the way, even if it was just getting through high school or getting through university and helping you write a reference letter. And so it's making that connection almost like on a personal level with the students and the parents. And I think that would be the key. Everybody's had a teacher. Everybody's had a support staff person that helped them. And I think it's important that people remember that.
I think that was perfectly poetic. I think we can leave it at that one.
We're going to end on a high note then, it sounds like. So once again, thank you to everyone for coming out and giving your time to us tonight. Special thank you to our guests, Glynis Price and John Washington. Thank you for letting me join you on the line and having that experience as well, because I haven't spent as much time as many of our other colleagues out at the picket line. So I really do thank you for that experience too. And thank you for sharing all that you have with our group that we have tonight. So thank you everyone once again. And I'm sure we'll be able to continue some of these chats with the different solidarity groups that we have. And I know I see everyone sharing their learnings on Twitter and on social media as well. So we'll all be sure to stay in touch that way too. And we'll be sending our love, support, solidarity, and non-frozen donuts to the U of L line, Faculty Association line, starting on Thursday at 11 o'clock. So thanks again and have a great night, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Take care.
Thanks for having us. Bye-bye.